With the meeting then. So thank you everybody for joining us today for our June 16th user meeting hosted by the Mifos initiative. The main focus of today's meeting is going to be a showcase of some of the new functionalities that the core team has built out and the community has worked on over the first part of the 2016 year. So we'll start out with a round of introductions just with everybody on the call so we can learn who's on the call and who's listening in. We'll go through a couple brief announcements if there are any, and then we'll spend several minutes just looking at the ongoing product development from the core team, partners and volunteers, as well as our Google Sum of Code interns. And then we'll move into the showcase and demo for the majority of the call. And then we'll close with just some open office hours and time for questions, if any, at the end of the call. So let's start out with our introductions. So if you could just let us know what your name is, what organization with, and where you're calling from today. That'll be helpful to figure out who you are, as I think we have some new faces this morning. So I'll let whoever's first on the list start in with their introduction. I think that might be Aliyu. So Aliyu, if your audio is working, you can unmute yourself and introduce yourself. So. And I know Aliyu might be having audio issues. So Dennis, did you want to introduce yourself? So.
Is Dennis Famous. I am calling from Tanzania. I'm working at ICT Park Solutions.
Okay, great. Thanks for joining this call again, Dennis. It was nice to have you on our last call too. And then Maxina, are you on as well? I think your audio might not be working too. And then Mohit, do you want to introduce yourself to the users on the call?
Yes. Hello everyone, I am Mohit. I am a G-Shock intern responsible for the browser-based offline access of the community app.
Thanks, Mohit, for joining. And then Niyati, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, this is Niyati, and I'm calling from Ahmedabad, India. And I'm the director and CEO of a company named One Hills. And we have just started working and using with Mifos open source. And I have a couple of leads who would want to implement Mifos. So that's the reason why I'm interested in understanding and learning more about Mifos.
Okay, thank you, Nyati. Happy to have you on today's call. Stebbins, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Ed. Stebbins Tugara from ICT Park Solutions. I'm calling from Tanzania with my team and with Dennis. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Stebbins. And then Adian, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So hey, hi everyone. I'm working with Mifos this summer through Google Summer of Code. I'm working on the formation of the notification module in the Finract app. So yeah, I'm working with Mifos in this summer.
Thank you, Adian, for joining today. And I believe we have, we had several dozen people register for the meeting, so hopefully they'll come on a bit later, but we'll move on in the agenda. And thank you to all those who introduced yourselves right now. Oh, Aliyu, is your audio working now? Okay, well thank you, Aliyu, for joining. If you want to make your introduction via the chat, we can note it there. So we didn't really have too many announcements to cover at this user meeting, just so we're going to get in the swing of having these user meetings regularly and use them as an opportunity to showcase the work that the core team's doing and also to showcase the work of partners and interns as they're building out new features and modules to share back with you, the members of our community. And so looking at the development, we last shared some updates on development during our check in on our roadmap for 2016. And at that time, we had proposed a number of core feature areas that the core team was going to work on. And for now, we had to put a majority of those areas on hold as we're prioritizing, some rather large work around savings groups and other self-funded group models, which compromise the major focus of the core team at this moment. But as we free up additional resources, some of those functional areas that are currently listed on hold we'll take up and have active work on those as well. But for any of those items listed as on hold here, we welcome the contribution of a partner who might like to take up one of these features and do development on it. And then just in terms of the other in-progress work, we will be having support for allowing a loan to be rescheduled multiple times, and this work is being sponsored by Watu Credit. So the major work that the core team working on right now is the savings group support in our platform, and we'll be sharing updates from the core team as more of those features get added in. And then in terms of what we're seeking partners in the community and volunteers to work on, we have a fairly long list of items we'd like contributions from them on to help grow our community app and grow some of the external modules that are out there and available. So if you're a partner listening in on this call, if you're a volunteer looking for some projects to get involved with, this is a good list to get started from. So we have the need to extend our data tables module to better support workflows within the community app. And so we want to update our batch jobs and then generalize some of the work that our existing partners, Conflux and Musoni, have done to enable workflows to happen via our data tables module. And then we also, have some work around an ad hoc reporting module that's been started by a previous intern as well as one of our partners. And we're looking for a partner or a volunteer to pick up that work and move it forward. And then right now, some of our partners in the community, Conflux and Scalabase, they've been updating and improving our data import tool. So they've got it working with the most recent release and are now, adding in some additional enhancements. And so if you're a user that's needing to use that tool, or if you're already actively using it and want to help in the QA and testing as we improve it, we've provided a link there to the Gitter chat room where you can get involved. And then likewise, we had a lot of new functionality get added into our Android field operations app this past quarter by our outreach interns, and we're now just taking that through a thorough QA and testing pass. And so if you want to be a part of testing that build, join the Gitter chat room for the Android client. And we've got a lot of work one of our GSOC interns, Rajan, is doing that you'll soon be able to take advantage of in the near future. And then in terms of just some other projects, we have enhancements to the community app UI that we're seeking volunteers for. We'll be adding in two-factor authentication led by a team of volunteers from SanDisk. And then we've got the need for interns and other workers to help in adding new PPI surveys to the surveys framework in the app. And then also, extending and stabilizing our SMS bridge and also utilizing our self-service APIs to get a reference web app in place. But in terms of other contributors we have in the community right now, we've got a team of 7 Google Summer of Code interns who are all active and working on projects that are going to add an immense value to our user and partner community. And so we've got a couple of these interns on the call today, and they'll also be joining some of our future user meetings to showcase the work that they're doing. But the projects that they're focused on right now are listed out here. And so Vishwajit is taking our self-service client-facing APIs and creating our first Android client banking app. And he'll have a version of that we can begin to showcase pretty soon. And then he'll rapidly start adding new functionalities to that. But that's something we welcome the feedback from our users on as we build this out, as it will be key foundational piece of mobile client-facing interactions that we know we need. As I noted earlier, Rajan, he's working on refactoring our current Android app for field officers and extending the offline support that's in it, and also implementing a new architecture and then adding in additional functionalities. And then on the web app front, we've got 3 interns working on projects, and we've got both Mohit and Adyan joining us today. And so we've got Duplex, who's refactoring the community app itself and creating a new skin and doing another list of enhancements there. And then Mohit, is going to be utilizing service workers and HTML5 to enable browser-based offline access in the community app, which is something the community has been requesting for many years now. And then Adyan is working on enabling a module for actionable notifications and status alerts, which can be delivered via any of the UIs. And then on top of the Fineract platform, in terms of external modules, Daniel is working on a general mobile money integration tool, which will allow the mobile money APIs from any provider to be integrated. And then Nikhil is working on integration with various credit bureaus with a focus on India and Uganda. And so for some of these projects, we do have some questions that we would like to open up the floor to some of the users on the call today. And so Mohit has already started a thread on the mailing list, and if you haven't seen that, we'd welcome you to add your feedback there as well as on today's call right now. So one of the critical areas he needs to understand is within our while you're on the browser and using the community app and you have intermittent connectivity and you or your users might go offline, we need to understand what are those most critical processes you would like to be able to complete while you're offline. So I want to open the floor now to any input from users or partners on the call today based on what processes they'd like to be able to do offline from the community app in their browser. So if anybody has any input there now, we'd be glad to hear it. So. Okay, so we recognize, so if you have feedback, you can type it in the chat or you can unmute yourself and make comments now. But we recognize that for data entry, that's one area where we're going to want to be able to support, thinking of some of the client data, making that available offline in the browser, and then being able to conduct transactions while connectivity is down. And so, we're certain that we're not going to add in offline support for the majority of any of the admin, or true back office functionality, but we do want to, make sure the key day-to-day operational work that field and account management staff are doing can be conducted while offline in the browser. So, please be thinking about what those most important processes are, and then add your comments and feedback to that mailing list thread that Mohit has gotten started.
I request everyone to let us know your thought about that. I request everyone to please let us know about your thought about the features that you want to be performed offline so that we can proceed in that way. And we have to be very clear that entire system won't be available offline, as most tasks are available when online, as like admin. So please let us know your thought. You can email in the Mifos user list and Mifos developer list.
Okay, thank you Mohit for being on, and I'll make sure we get feedback and we'll get that list of use cases that we need to support so you can move forward with greater clarity on your project. And then likewise for the Android field operations app, we've added in a substantial amount of functionality throughout the various releases we've made, but we know there still are other areas and tasks that you would like to enable your field staff to do from a mobile device, and so we want to know what those additional processes are. So right now we do cover most of the core functionalities around viewing and accessing the clients and inputting any of the transactional data that needs to go in for their various accounts. And we also have a small subset of location-based features regarding clients and staff that are in there now. But we do recognize that we could do more, I think, in terms of survey management and collecting additional information about clients. But please, if you are looking to have your field staff be more directly out there in the field and want them to be able to utilize smartphone or tablet-based device to conduct their operations, let us know, what additional processes and workflows you want to see supported from the mobile app. And then the last bucket where we want to just plant the seed of discussion is around our Android self-service app. And so, our self-service APIs support allowing the client to authenticate into the Mifos X system or the Fineract system, and then they can view, their profile, they can view all their accounts, and then they can conduct, transactions across their own accounts. So whether that be transferring between their accounts, making a loan repayment from a savings account, or transferring to another member's savings account, they can do all those transactions. So what we really want to understand is how the overall user experience for this self-service banking app for a client should be. So what are the most critical pieces of information and data the clients want to know about their accounts? What do they need to be able to perform regarding account management while in an app like this? And then, based on the transactions that are supported, what are the transactions they need to be able to perform in a self-service manner? And so if anybody has any input right now on that topic, we welcome your comments, or you can send them to the mailing list. Okay, well, if there are no, direct comments on that right now, just remember that we have, talented interns working on these areas, and for their work to proceed along, most smoothly and most effectively, we want to get actual use cases from the community that they can build towards, rather than just, build solutions seeking problems for. So please, we know that the community wants to have their field officers be able to utilize mobile tools, and they want their clients to have mobile tools, and they need to access their data offline. But we need the actual, use cases and requirements of what you want to see there. Okay, so we're now at our part of our meeting now, where I'm going to move into the showcase of some of the new features in Mifos X 16.05. So before I go into the actual demo, I'll just give a brief, rundown of the features we'll be showcasing today, and then, also note some of the new features that have come in and that we'll showcase at a later date. So first off, we added in our shares and dividends module, which was one of the, key gaps to blocking us from fully supporting cooperatives and credit unions. And so now, we have a new product type of shares, which are used to track member equity. So they act very similar to a deposit account, but it's actually, a member's equity account. And you can also, apart from opening a new shares account, additional shares can be purchased at a later date, and the nominal value of these shares can be tracked. And then the shares are tightly linked with our dividends functionality. So a total amount of dividends or profits to be distributed back to shareholders can be defined, and then based on the client owning shares within the period of eligibility, they can be allocated dividends. And so the dividends are then automatically allocated to members, proportional to their individual shareholdings, and then the corresponding general ledger entries are made as well. And then a new feature we added in was adding in amount-based interest rate charts. So for our fixed deposits and recurring deposits, we have the ability to define interest rate bands based on the length of the maturity period for the deposit. We now have the ability to define the interest rate band based on the amount of the deposit itself. And then another feature I'll be demonstrating is our value-added tax withholding. So we've implemented what we call tax components and tax groups to support collecting and assessing of charges that are a percentage of the interest earned on account. So for those clients who need to collect value-added tax withholding on behalf of their clients, they can now do that. And then I'll be showcasing a bit of our dormant account management features, but there's some of that I'll also have to showcase at a later date, as there was a small bug that just got fixed and it's not available on the demo server I'm testing. And then in terms of some other functionalities that we'll showcase later, so the second round of self-service APIs was added in, and that covers being able to transfer to external accounts. And we won't be able to showcase that till we have a reference app in place. And so that first reference app will be the Android app that Vishwajit is working on. But those APIs are available to any partners that want to build their own apps right now. So those are fully available for others to work on. And then we also have implemented our surveys framework, which powers the Progress Out of Poverty Index support within the Fineract platform. And the mobile UI is available for that. And then we have the web UI to capture the surveys in place, but we're still working on finalizing the web UI to create new surveys via a graphical user interface. And then other work that the team had been working on was integration with the Stellar. It's an open protocol for transferring money more effectively. And so the backend integration between Mifos and Stellar is complete. But what we're now, seeking are pilot users so we can help define some use cases to implement the front-end UI to enable transfers. And so the primary use case we're looking at for Stellar integration is to allow clients from two different financial institutions to be able to transfer money to each other. So we're looking at, two separate organizations within a same country, and then having them both have Mifos implemented along with Stellar implemented, and then they could utilize Mifos and Stellar to complete the transfer of funds end-to-end in a very low-cost manner. So if you're interested in a pilot of that, please be in touch. And so now I'll move into the showcase. So just one moment, I'm going to exit out of the slide deck and then open up one of our demo servers and then begin walking through some of these features. So I'm just logging into one of our public demo servers. This is the Demo 4 server, and it's similar to our main demo server, but it has a bit cleaner set of data. So I'm just logged in right now as a super user, and I'll stay logged in as a super user for today's demo. And so, first off, I'll just start out with looking at the shares and dividends support we've added in. And so I've configured a few of these products beforehand, and so I'll show you some of the products that I've created, and then I'll show you some of the accounts I've created with the new products. And then, hopefully we'll be able to cover most of the new functionality on today's demonstration. So under the products menu, you now see a new category of share products. And before our meeting, I created a new share product called Members Equity Share. And so in this product, I could specify the total number of shares that are available, and then the total number of shares that are to be issued to members. And then I'm also able to specify a nominal price for the share. And then based on that price and the shares issued, the capital value is calculated. And then for each share product, you can specify a minimum number of shares a client must hold, the default number, and then the maximum number of shares a client can hold. And so this minimum is important. So if you run a credit union or cooperative and members, must have a minimum equity stake, this is how you would support that via the minimum number of shares. And then you can also specify a minimum active period in which they'll be actively considered to receive dividends. And then likewise, you can also specify a lock-in period in which they need to keep the share account open and can't redeem the shares and then transfer them. And then you can also specify whether or not dividends are available for active or for inactive clients. And then we also added in support for being able to define a future price for a share. So let's say you want the price of the share to appreciate in the future. So you can specify a price, market price, and then the period for which that price is valid. And then shares support charges as all of our other products do. And then it's integrated with the accounting. So I have the shareholder equity account where the shares are held. There's a suspense account for transfers, and then the corresponding asset and income accounts as well. And so now that you've seen a share product configured, I'll show you opening up a few different shareholder accounts. So I'm just going to go to a new account here. So I'm going to go to Mayumi Mercado, and then from our action bar here, I'm going to click to create a new share account, and then I'll see the share type of members equity share. And then I'm going to, say the submission date was back on April 1st. And so this will be before the price was $6. And so even though it's still reflecting $6, the price that she will purchase is $6. And so I'm just going to have her purchase 15 shares. And then the minimum active period is still 30 days. And then the lock-in period will also be 6 months. And then for the shares accounts, the one important thing is they have to be linked to a savings account. So the savings account is where the funds will be transferred from to purchase the shares, and the savings account is also where any dividends will get allocated back to the members. And then once a share account is redeemed and closed out, those funds will go into this linked savings account. So that's very important that they also have a savings account and that you link it. So I'm going to put the application date here of April 1st, and I'm going to click submit. And then the shares account follows the same workflow that our savings account do. So you can now see that there's a purchase pending approval of 15 shares at a price of $5 for a total amount of $75. I'm going to be able to approve this. I'm just going to backdate this to April 1st. So I click submit, and then once it's approved, I need to activate it. I'm going to activate this on April 1st as well. And so now you can see that the account is active, and then if I go back to her client profile, you can see that she has 15 approved shares there. And so we'll stay on Mayumi's account right now, and then let's say she would like to apply for some additional shares on May 1st. So this request, or let's say it's going to be May 15th. So on May 15th, she wanted to purchase some new shares. It's showing the price during that period of time. So she's going to buy 10 additional shares there, and we'll click submit. And then this, is pending approval now. So let's approve these additional shares. Just going to check to approve. I click submit. And so now she has a total of 25 shares that she's held, and they've all been approved in purchase. And then we'll go to the savings account to see that the transactions occurred from there. So I think on the transactions, I need to have my batch jobs run before it's reflecting them being removed from the savings account balance. So that's why we didn't see them reflected there right now. But now that I've showed you how to create a share product and then open a new share account for members and also apply for existing shares, I want to show you how the dividends functionality works. So if I go back to the product menu and I go back to my share product, I can click the dividends tab right here. And then once I click dividend, I can initiate a dividend, and then I can state the period, this dividend period start date. So this would be, so at any point in time between the start and end date, if a client held shares for the minimum active period, they would be eligible for the dividend. So I'm going to say the dividend period is going to run from March 1st, and then it's going to run through the end of May. So we'll say March 1st through May 31st. And then we're going to be allocating, and the dividend amount here is the total amount of dividends that will be allocated. So you determine this amount. So this might be the profits or the total amount you want to allocate as dividends, but this is calculated outside of Mifos, and then you specify the amount here that you want as dividends payable. So I'm going to say the dividend for this period is 5,000, and then I press submit, and then it shows that from this period of March 1st to May 31st, we have a total dividend of 5,000 that's been initiated. And if I clicked it, it'll show how the dividends would be allocated across the different members. So this is proportional to the shares that they hold. So if you recall, Mayumi had 25 shares, and so we only have 5 clients within our office that has shares, and so the total dividend is allocated amongst these 5 clients based on the holdings that they have. And so you can see this breakdown here, and then if you click post dividends, the dividends will be posted to each of the members' accounts and then posted to their savings accounts. And so at the back end, when the dividend is initiated, the funds get moved into a dividends payable account, and then when the dividends posted, the funds get moved from the dividends payable, and then the dividends get posted to the various member savings accounts. So before I move on to any new functionality, were there questions about the shares dividends features that anybody would like to see at this point in time? Okay, so if there are no questions about the shares or dividends, I'm going to move on to demoing a little bit of the functionality around the tax groups and tax components. And so these can be defined from the product menu once again. So I go to admin and then to products, and then I go to the manage tax configuration section there. And so first off, I'd want to define tax components. And so earlier, I created a tax component for a savings withholding tax. And so this is a 1% charge on, the interest that a member is earning in their savings account. And then it's going to be credited to the withholding tax payable liabilities account. And then this is starting as of March 1st. And then once I've created a tax component, I can then, create a tax group. So I created the withholding tax group. And then within the tax group, I could put any number of tax components that I'd like within there. And so right now, I just added in the savings withholding tax. But if I had other, tax components, I could add them there. And so then once I've created a tax group, that tax group can then be assigned to the various products. And so for the tax group that I created there, I did assign that to this new savings product that I created called interest-bearing savings account. And so from the product configuration here, I can scroll down, and if withholding tax is applicable, I check the box, and then I'm able to select which tax group is there. And so then let me show you a sample account that has this product enabled, and then I can show you the interest that's being posted as well as the value-added tax that's being withheld. So one client that I demonstrated this for is Lupe. So I will go to her account. And then I'm going to go to her interest-bearing savings account. And then you can see, some of the interest that's been posted, as well as the withholding tax that's being withheld when the interest is being posted. And so I've showed you how to do that for an existing account, but let me just show you, a live transaction, opening an account like that, and then showing the interest get posted. So I'm going to go to Maria Vasquez, and I'm going to open up a new interest-bearing savings account for her. So I'm just going to leave the default balances as is, but I'm going to backdate this a bit so we can do some transactions and show interest get posted. So we'll just open our account with a minimum opening balance of 100, and then I still have withholding tax is applicable, and it's got the withholding tax selected there. And I'm just going to approve her account. And I need to activate her account. Okay, so now her account is approved and activated, and it has the opening balance of 100. So let's just make a deposit for her on, let's say, 2 weeks after she opened the account, she made a deposit. So we're going to say she made a deposit of 500 in cash on April 15th. And so this deposit shows there. And then let's say she's also going to make another deposit on May 1st. We'll say she makes it on May 6th of 300, and then cash as well. And then, so you can see these deposits here. So let's then go and post the interest. First we'll see the interest that's being earned here. And so let's then post the interest manually, and then we can see the withholding tax get calculated as well. So if I click post interest, I can then see, the interests get posted after each of the deposits have been made. So after the deposit here, she got interest posted here, and then here's the withholding tax amount, which is 1% of the interest that got credited. And then likewise, the withholding tax here on June 1st is 1% of the interest that was credited here. So that was what I wanted to showcase in terms of the support we now add for capturing value-added tax that's being withheld from a member's savings account. Were there any questions about that feature before I move on? Okay, well, if there are no questions on that, I'm going to move into showing our amount-based interest rate charts. So once again, I'm going to go back to our products menu, and I created a new fixed deposit product beforehand for our demonstration. And so this was a 24-month term deposit. And so I just created a term deposit here. And then down here in the interest rate chart section, we now have the ability to specify that the grouping of the interest rate bands is by amount rather than period. And so I've set up several bands here based on the amount. So if the amount is the range from 1 to 5,000, I can specify different interest rates based on the length of the period, but I can also specify different interest rate amounts based on the amount of the deposit itself. So for this first range here, if the amount of the deposit is between 1 and 5,000 and the period is 1 to 6 months, the interest rate is 6. But then in this interest rate band, if the deposit is between 5,000 and 10,000 and it's the same length of period, the interest rate is 7. And then likewise, I have another interest rate band here where if the deposit is 10,000 and above and the period's 1 to 6 months, the interest rate is 9. And so I could have made this more simple by not having the time-based component here and just have the amount-based component. But for the example, I wanted to show both of them at once. And so I'll go and show you a couple different accounts that have been opened to show you that they're getting the interest rate based on the amount of the deposit. So I'm going to go back to our clients list here, and then I'm just going to go to the second page here. And so for Dolores, I opened up a term deposit for her. And so if you look at the term deposit, you can see she had an amount of $2,500, and the period was 12 months. So her interest rate will be 7. And so that corresponds to the second band here. So her deposit's between 1 and 5,000, and then the length of the maturity period is between 7 and 12 months. So the interest rate for her account is 7%. And then let me go back to another member's account so we can see them get a different amount based on having a higher amount deposited. Then if I go to, I believe, Francis, no, that was the wrong member. So if I go to Hisoka, my apologies, I'm trying to remember which members had the deposit account here. So okay, and so Ana Perez, she has a deposit of $7,500 for a 12-month period, so her interest rate amount is 8%. And then let me just open up another member an account, and I'll do it above 10,000 so you can see the rate that they get. So let's open up a 24-month term deposit for Boyan. So if I go to New Fixed Deposit, and I select the product, and then I'll just make the submission date April 1st. And then I'm going to have the deposit amount be 20,000. And then the deposit period will be 12 months. Okay, and then I'll press submit. And then you can see that the rate of interest will be 10% for them. And if I press approve, I'm just going to approve this on April 1st as well. And then I have maker checker configured here, so I just need to approve it there. And then if I go back to Boyan's account, I can see that this is just awaiting activation. So I will activate his account. Okay, so the account is now activated, and you can see the rate of interest and the maturity amount based on that interest rate band. So that's what I wanted to demonstrate on the interest rate based, or the amount-based interest rate charts. Are there any questions about how that functionality works? Okay, well, if no questions on that, the last feature I wanted to show was part of the support we've added for dormant accounts. And so once again, I'm going to go back to our savings products, and now we have a configurable setting around what period and what are your definitions for a dormant account. And so if I click the box to enable dormancy tracking, I now can define the period for 3 different new statuses. So the first status is just inactive. I can define the number of days before an account is deemed inactive, and then I can define the number of days before it's moved to dormant status. And then lastly, I can define the number of days before it's moved to the escheat status. And then once it's also in the escheat status, it'll be automatically escheated into a escheat liability account, which is located here. And so this was the small piece of functionality that we fixed a bug that's not working currently, so I won't be able to demonstrate the escheated accounts getting moved over, but I can demonstrate, and show you some of the reports that show accounts that are in the dormant or inactive statuses. So apart from adding these new statuses to the savings account, we now have a new report where you can go in and see which accounts are dormant. So if I go to the regional office and I select inactive status, well, there's nobody at that level that's inactive, but if I go to a different office, I can see who's been inactive. So if I go to head office and click run report, I can see, one client, Johnny Yaboya, that's inactive. And if I go back to the regional office and run a report on dormant accounts, I can then see that we have all of these people who have, dormant accounts there. So that's briefly what I wanted to show you on the savings, the dormant savings account management. So to summarize there, you have the ability now to define these new statuses and then the number of days they are dormant or inactive before they move to that status. And then you have a report to show the dormant accounts. And then for those dormant accounts that have moved into the escheat status, those accounts get automatically closed and the deposits transferred into this escheated account liability. So those are the major features I wanted to showcase today. All of these features are available, for download and for you to use day to day in your operations. So if you haven't, tested out the features in these new releases, please go ahead and download the release. But I want to, now pause and then open the floor to any questions in general that people might have. So. Are there any questions in general from the folks on the call?
Hello.
Okay, well, if there are no questions right now, we can wrap up the meeting a few minutes early. But I want to thank, everybody for joining, especially some of our GSOC interns who've joined. As usual, we record these meetings and we'll send out a recording of this in the showcase later on. And then, if there's a specific topic or area you'd like to see covered on one of these future user meetings, let us know and we'll add it to the agenda. And then I also want to remind everybody to, try and provide feedback on those areas we outlined earlier regarding, browser-based offline access, our Android field operations app, as well as our client-facing Android app. So thank you again, everybody, for joining. And this will conclude our monthly user meetup hosted by the Mifos Initiative. So thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.